Welcome back to Canadian Justice, where we're discussing Section 33 of the Charter, the Notwithstanding Clause, and this new excellent book edited by Peter Biro about the history and use of that clause. Now, I said in my introduction that even calling the Notwithstanding Clause, Peter, calling it an override clause, a lot of people do call it that, but even that is contentious. A lot of scholars do call it override, but some scholars, including some in the book, object to that characterization. So can you explain that part of the debate?
Sure. Well, I don't like to get bogged down in nomenclature. The important thing is, what do people really mean by the words? So, if override, by the way, which was used by Jean Chrétien in November 1981 when he first introduced, the outcome of the negotiations, the patriation negotiations to Parliament, he called it an override. The Supreme Court of Canada used the term override in the Ford decision. Lorraine Weinrib set that in stone for all time in a famous article that she wrote called "Learning to Live with the Override." The key thing is what is meant by the term override. If override is meant that Section 33 insulates a law from charter scrutiny, then that's one thing, and that is very problematic. If override simply means that it allows uh, uh, a a law to operate notwithstanding the infringement, but still allows the courts jurisdiction to comment on and, in fact, to issue declaratory and possibly other relief, short of striking down the law, then override means something entirely different. So I don't like to get caught up in the term override. I'm much more interested in which way ultimately the Supreme Court of Canada is going to go, and it will be going there at some point soon because there are two critical cases, one out of Saskatchewan and one out of Quebec, that are going to require the court to decide just what override really means. Does it oust the court's jurisdiction altogether to comment on the effect of an infringement or of a law that is inconsistent with the charter? Or does it simply restrict the court's ability with respect to the kind of relief it can issue?
Yeah,
That's what's a
I
lot
want to follow
important.
up on this because this is one of the really contentious issues right now. And I've said to a number of colleagues, and my colleague Joanna Barron has talked about in a recent article that she sees a storm brewing with Section
Yeah.
33. And a big part of that storm relates to what you're talking about right now, the ability of a court to review a use of the notwithstanding clause, in particular, a preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause. A lot of
Sure.
the theory around the development of this clause was that there's a dialogue between courts and legislatures. And if the use of the notwithstanding clause preemptively, does it prohibit a court from reviewing whether or not that law violates rights, even if that declaration of a rights violation would be moot? And the two cases you're talking about, one is the Bill 21 case, Bill 21 religious liberty case coming out of Quebec, which Marion you've written about in the book, and the other is the case about transgender students and pronoun use in Saskatchewan. And it looks like there's two competing uh, thoughts on these moot declarations from these two lines of cases. Marion, is there anything you want to say about that? It's such a complicated issue, but I think it's a really important one for the courts and for uh, legislators and the public and scholars to grapple with.
So the preemptive use of Section 33 in the way that we've been seeing it recently by Quebec, Ontario, and Saskatchewan is nothing like what was envisioned for the clause back in when it was negotiated. And I think the biggest question when we think about the things that Peter was talking about, preemptive use of the clause, legislatures trying to foreclose courts from even weighing in on rights, is sure, Section 33 says that the legislature has the last word, but does it have the only word? I think that's the question that courts are going to be wrestling with.
Peter, only about 30 seconds left. What do you want to say
Yeah.
on
Can
that?
I jump? Can I jump in on that? There's a couple of things. First of all, there's nothing in the drafting of Section 33 that prevents preemptive use. So the issue of preemptive use is really going to be aggravated or that much more accentuated or amplified in terms of its problematic implications if the answer to the first question that we had, does the courts
Right.
is the court's jurisdiction, is the court's
Yeah.
jurisdiction ousted?
We've got to go to
Then
break, but we'll be
preemptive
right
use
back.
becomes